The fascist mind works exactly like the narcissist mind. And so what they fear is themselves, is their own insignificance, is the emptiness at the core of their being that they replace with a grandiose false self. And so fascism is always described as reactionary. It's reactionary politics. It's reactionary to change. It's a reaction to multiculturalism. When you look at the root word of conservatism, from which fascism always kind of evolves or devolves, however you want to look at it, the root word is conserve. Make America great again. They're trying to conserve a specific idea of what they think we are. Right, and it's rooted in American exceptionalism. But I've always said American exceptionalism kind of functions as the grandiose false self of cultural narcissism. I just heard a conservative on a panel, saying multiculturalism doesn't work because the bottom always ends up engulfing the top. Now, leaving aside the ugly dynamics of placing one culture on top of another, he's telling on himself. Because his so-called top culture is so empty, it's so weak that it can't share any space with anybody. Right. And so you see this when they're chanting, "They will not replace us." All over the place, they're telling on themselves. And what they're telling us is that they're insecure nothings at the core of their sense of self. They have no sense of self. Their sense of self doesn't exist internally in who they are, what they stand for, principles, any of that. We see them just abandoning all of their principles left and right because it's never actually about the principles themselves. It's about preserving a power structure where they're on top. And so, yes, they're scared of change, they're scared of modernity, they're scared of multiculturalism, but ultimately they're scared of the empty black hole of themselves. And so they latch on to somebody they perceive as a strongman leader, even though those strongman leaders are also weak little cowards at their core. They have all of these displays of perceived strength because they have no strength of their own. They're always running around in numbers. They can never stand by themselves. Fascism is the opposite of individuality, right? It's the opposite of authenticity. Again, it's a position rooted in fear of their own insignificance, in fear of having to sit with themselves and stand on their own 2 feet. They're just a bunch of scared little children. That's all they are. They haven't evolved. They haven't developed anything worthwhile in their lives, which is why they cling to all of these external identities. They have no identity of their own, so they cling to being an American. They cling to being a white man. They cling to whiteness. Whatever it is that they're clinging to, it's at the expense of actually developing as a human being themselves. They're not evolved human beings. I think of narcissism as a kind of unevolved sense of self, right? Because the self doesn't evolve, the grandiose false self is needed for them to project like a sense of being anything at all. And so to me, it's this core emptiness that animates both narcissism and